City Council tonight voted to approve the city clerk's decision to certify a referendum petition on the city's trash contract as insufficient. The council voted 5-4 to agree with City Clerk Connie Schaefer's determination that a referendum petition to put the city's 5-year contract with Waste Management before voters was insufficient. Schaefer's finding that the petition was insufficient was based on an opinion from City Attorney C. Blaine Myers, who argued that the Waste Management contract involves the appropriation of money. That's a category exempt from referendum under the city charter. Attorney Aubrey Sparks of the ACLU addressed the council via phone during the meeting, arguing that a judge will likely rule in favor of the petitioners and that the legal fight could prove costly for the city. The petition committee has already challenged the clerk's certification in court, with Sparks representing them. Speaking prior to the council meeting, petition committee member Eric Engel said he ultimately does not give much weight to council's decision one way or the other due to the pending litigation.
It really doesn't, to me, matter until the courts have a final say. A judge will ultimately decide, and our attorney cited state Supreme Court precedent that judicial review should really be taking place here and deciding.
Numerous members of the public spoke in favor of the petition effort during the public comment section. Mayor Tom Joyce delivered a lengthy history of the city's attempts to address the labor shortage in the sanitation department during his message from the executive. We will have a more thorough report on this evening's city council meeting during our newscasts tomorrow.